Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever been in a conversation where you say something completely reasonable, something mild, totally rational, only to have the other person instantly twist your words into this exaggerated, unrecognizable monster? It is absolutely one of the most frustrating communication traps out there. Well, today's explainer is all about dismantling that exact phenomenon. It's a manipulative tactic, and it's designed to make you look foolish while your opponent looks victorious. So we're going to break down how to spot it, why people do it, and most importantly, how to defend against it.
Let's look at a classic scenario from our source material involving two colleagues, George and Charlie. George makes an actual, incredibly calm statement at a town council meeting. He suggests, let's cut the Christmas decor budget slightly to give to the school library. Perfectly reasonable, right? It's just a simple reallocation of funds. But then Charlie fires back with this completely unhinged social media post reacting to George. He says he wants to cancel Christmas and destroy children's happiness. He's the enemy of joy. Notice that massive shift? We go from calm, calculated logic straight into exaggerated theatrical panic. And this absurdity right here, that is the heartbeat of what we're talking about today.
So here is our roadmap for today. First, the core concept. Second, everyday examples. Third, 3 types of straw men. And finally, we'll wrap up with the counterattack toolkit.
All right, section 1, the core concept.
It's called the straw man fallacy. Historically, soldiers training for combat would build literal dummies out of straw. And why? Well, because a straw dummy can't defend itself. It doesn't fight back, it doesn't dodge, it definitely doesn't run away. It just stands there waiting to be destroyed so the soldier can feel this sense of an easy victory. And honestly, in a debate, an opponent does the exact same thing. When they know they can't defeat your actual strong argument, they just fabricate a weak, absurd, completely lifeless version of it, a verbal straw dummy. Then they boldly attack that dummy in front of everyone, hoping the audience thinks they've defeated you. But they haven't. They really just beat up a pile of straw.
Moving right along to section 2, everyday examples.
First up, let's look at a classic example from the home. A parent says, with a totally caring tone, "You should eat fewer sweets, they ruin your teeth." Just basic health advice, right? But instantly the child builds a straw man, throwing their hands up in dramatic panic. Aha, so you want me to starve to death and eat nothing? It's comical, sure, but it perfectly highlights the distortion. The child takes a perfectly reasonable limit on sugar and completely replaces it with the absolute extreme of total starvation.
Next, let's look at personal relationships. One partner vulnerably says, "I wish we talked a little more." Instantly, the defensive partner fires back, "So I have to be glued to you 24/7 and never do any work?" This happens all the time when someone feels cornered. Instead of actually addressing the genuine request for just a bit more connection, they build this massive straw man of suffocating 24-hour surveillance. It's essentially a defensive shield made entirely of exaggeration.
And our third example brings us to politics. Now, look at this purely as a neutral mathematical demonstration of logical distortion. A representative proposes, let's cut the military budget by 5% and use it for education. Meanwhile, the political opponent screams, he wants to dismantle the army entirely and hand the country over to our enemies. Mathematically speaking, a 5% trim has been magically transformed into a 100% abolition of the armed forces. It's incredibly common in politics, mostly because beating up a terrifying straw man rallies a crowd way faster than debating the boring nuances of a 5% budget shift.
Let's move to section 3 and see how this builds. 3 types of straw man.
According to our source materials breakdown, opponents generally rely on one of 3 distinct models when they fabricate these logical dummies. We've got the exaggerated straw man, the hollow straw man, and the weak straw man. Let's look at each one of these briefly. The first type is the exaggerated straw man. This is where your opponent takes your original statement and simply inflates it until it pops. This is exactly what happened to our friend George from the beginning of the explainer. George suggested a minor budget cut for decorations, and Charlie inflated it into the complete and utter cancellation of Christmas. It's literally taking a small truth and stretching it to an extreme falsehood.
Our second type is the hollow straw man. Now, what's really interesting about this quote right here, George thinks children don't deserve happiness, is that it takes things a step further. In the exaggerated model, the opponent just stretches your words. But in the hollow model, they fabricate a completely fake stance out of thin air, like something you never even hinted at holding. George never said a word about children's happiness. The opponent just invents a terrible hollow motive, assigns it to you, and then wildly attacks it.
The third type is the weak straw man. Here, the opponent doesn't exaggerate and they don't invent.
Instead, they hyper-focus on the absolute weakest, most vulnerable fraction of your argument and use it to completely dismiss the entire concept. Say you state that solar panels are efficient 95% of the time. Your opponent ignores that 95% entirely, hyper-focuses on the 5% failure rate, and immediately declares the entire technology completely worthless. They found the weakest piece of straw and pretended it was the whole dummy.
All right, finally, Section 4, the counterattack toolkit. So the crucial point is this simple three-step procedure. Identify, separate, and return. Look, when someone pulls a straw man on you, it is so easy to get flustered and accidentally start defending the fake argument they just made. You absolutely must resist that urge. Instead, you're going to execute these 3 steps to publicly expose the fallacy in real time.
Step 1 is identify. You have to stay completely calm. Do not let their theatrical panic infect you. You look right at them and publicly point out exactly what they're doing. You say something like, "You are currently refuting a version of my argument that I never actually stated." You are shining a massive spotlight directly on the dummy they just built, letting everyone in the room know that a trick is being played.
Step 2 is separate. You must clearly draw a line in the sand, dividing reality from their extreme claim. Think back to George. George would say, "I never said we should cancel Christmas. I said 10% of the decoration budget should shift to the library." Those are 2 completely different things. By separating the 2, you instantly defang their attack and you show the audience just how wildly they exaggerated.
And finally, step 3 is return. You direct the conversation right back to your original point. You say, "Please respond to the actual statement I made, not the one you just created in your head." Executing this step publicly is incredibly powerful. It completely destroys your opponent's credibility because it exposes them as someone who's just running away from the real debate. They are literally forced to either engage with your actual strong argument or admit they were just playing games.
Which brings us to the core lesson of this entire explainer. When someone twists your words or invents a ridiculous stance to attack, stay calm, use your toolkit, and ask yourself this one very powerful question. Are they fighting you or just their own shadow? Because once you start spotting these dummies in the wild, you'll honestly start wondering just how many of our daily arguments are completely fabricated. Thanks for joining this explainer.